There is a strange kind of heartbreak that doesn't begin when someone leaves. It begins when they finally stay. You wanted their attention. You wondered whether they liked you. You waited for their messages, replayed conversations, and questioned whether they would ever choose you. Maybe you spent weeks or months trying to get closer to them. Then something changes. They finally open up. They make their feelings obvious. They start choosing you consistently. They stop making you wonder. And instead of feeling relieved, something inside you goes quiet. The excitement fades. Their messages feel different. Their affection suddenly feels heavy. You notice flaws that never bothered you before. You start wondering whether you were ever really attracted to them. Eventually, you pull away. But then something even stranger happens. The moment they become distant again, you start missing them. Suddenly you remember everything you liked. Suddenly you want their attention back. You want them when they're distant. You lose interest when they're available. If you've lived through this pattern, you may have wondered whether something is wrong with you. Maybe you're incapable of intimacy. Maybe you only want people who don't want you. But there is another possibility. Maybe you didn't suddenly lose interest in the person. Maybe you lost the uncertainty that had been making the attraction feel so intense. And those are two very different things. Number one, you may have been attached to the chase. When someone is emotionally uncertain, your mind has a problem to solve. Do they like me? Why haven't they replied? What did that look mean? Are they pulling away? What can I do to make them choose me? Every unanswered question keeps your attention activated. You check your phone. You replay conversations. You imagine what might happen next. The person begins occupying far more psychological space than the actual relationship deserves. And because your mind is constantly returning to them, that intensity can start feeling like evidence of love. Then they finally choose you. The puzzle disappears. There is nothing left to decode, nothing left to win, nothing left to prove. Now you have to experience the person instead of pursuing the possibility of them. Their ordinary moods, their flaws, their needs, their expectations, their vulnerability. And sometimes you discover that the fantasy was more exciting than the actual connection. Fantasy gives you control. Real intimacy doesn't. Number two, distance may feel safer than closeness. You can desperately want intimacy and still become uncomfortable when intimacy actually arrives. From a distance, you can imagine being loved without being fully exposed. You can dream about someone understanding you without allowing them close enough to see everything you normally hide. But once they love you openly, the question changes. It is no longer only, will they choose me? Now it becomes, what happens when they really know me? That can be frightening. Being rejected by someone who never truly knew you hurts. Being fully seen and then rejected can feel much deeper. So sometimes the mind creates distance before that possibility can happen. You become critical. You feel irritated. Their affection feels excessive. Small incompatibilities suddenly seem enormous. You tell yourself the chemistry disappeared. Some concerns may be real, but pay attention to the timing. If the doubts repeatedly become strongest exactly when someone becomes emotionally available, the problem may not be attraction alone. Closeness itself may be activating something you learned to protect. Number three, you may have learned to confuse uncertainty with chemistry. If love has often been inconsistent in your life, emotional instability can begin to feel strangely familiar. Attention comes and goes. Affection has to be earned. You never quite know where you stand. That uncertainty keeps your emotional system activated. Then someone arrives who is consistent. They communicate. They show up. They don't disappear for days and return as though nothing happened. They don't force you to decode every interaction. And instead of thinking, this feels safe, you may think, why don't I feel the spark? But perhaps what disappeared wasn't attraction. Perhaps what disappeared was activation. If your nervous system is accustomed to emotional turbulence, peace can initially feel like boredom. The person who keeps you awake at night can feel more exciting than the person who allows you to sleep peacefully. But intensity is not automatically intimacy. Anxiety is not automatically chemistry. And peace is not the absence of love. Sometimes peace simply feels unfamiliar. Number 4. Sometimes you really don't want them. This matters because psychology can become another way of talking yourself out of what you genuinely feel. Not every loss of attraction is fear of intimacy. Sometimes someone becomes available and you finally see them clearly. The fantasy collapses because reality arrives, and reality tells you that you don't actually want the relationship. That doesn't make you damaged. The goal is not to force yourself to remain interested because someone treats you well. The goal is to distinguish fear from incompatibility. Fear often sounds like, I want this, but something inside me wants to escape. Lack of attraction sounds more like, I don't want this, but I feel guilty because I think I should. Those experiences can look similar from the outside, but they require completely different responses. Number 5. Maybe you wanted to be chosen more than you wanted the person. This is uncomfortable to admit. Sometimes the deepest desire isn't to be with someone. It's to know that they want you. When someone is uncertain about you, their approval becomes valuable precisely because you don't have it. You start believing that if they finally choose you, something will be proven. That you are attractive enough, interesting enough, worth staying for. Then they choose you. For a moment, you feel relief. The question has been answered. You won. And strangely, the emotional urgency disappears. This can create a repeating cycle. You chase validation from someone unavailable. They become available. You lose interest. They withdraw. The validation disappears. You want them again. What you miss may not be the relationship. You may miss what their attention allowed you to feel about yourself. That distinction can change everything. Number 6. You may have been in love with who you were during the pursuit. Think about who you become when you desperately want someone. You anticipate. You fantasize. You improve yourself. Every message carries possibility. Your life suddenly has a storyline. Then the person chooses you. The story you were living inside reaches its ending. Now there is an actual relationship, with ordinary days and ordinary conversations. And you have to confront a question pursuit allowed you to avoid. Who are you when there is nothing left to chase? This pattern doesn't only appear in love. Some people pursue achievements, money, approval, recognition, or success with enormous intensity, only to feel strangely empty once they finally get them. Sometimes pursuit wasn't taking them toward the destination. Pursuit was giving them an identity. So ask yourself, were you trying to know this person, or were you trying to win them? Were you building a relationship, or resolving something inside yourself? Number 7. Watch what happens when they pull away. One of the clearest clues appears after distance returns. When they're close, you feel trapped. When they're gone, you feel abandoned. When they want you, you question your feelings. When they stop wanting you, you idealize them again. If this happens repeatedly, the question may no longer be, why do I keep meeting the wrong people? A better question is, why does my desire become strongest when connection becomes impossible? Because healthy intimacy eventually asks something fantasy never does. It asks you to tolerate ordinary closeness, to allow another person to be imperfect, to let yourself be seen without constantly performing, to stay present after the adrenaline settles. And perhaps most importantly, it asks whether you can still choose someone once you no longer have to win them. That kind of attraction may feel quieter. It may not keep you checking your phone every 5 minutes. It may not produce endless analysis or dramatic highs and lows. If uncertainty has always accompanied desire, that quietness can initially feel like emptiness. But quiet doesn't necessarily mean empty. Sometimes quiet is what connection feels like when it no longer has to fight for survival. 3 questions that reveal what is actually happening. The next time you notice yourself losing interest after someone becomes available, don't immediately force yourself closer, and don't immediately run. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, what exactly changed? Did the person reveal something genuinely incompatible with what you want? Or did your discomfort begin simply because they became more emotionally available? Second, what do you feel when they pull away? Do you miss their personality, companionship, and presence? Or does their distance suddenly make you desperate to regain their attention? Third, if you knew with complete certainty that this person would never reject you, would you still want them? That question removes the chase from the equation. And sometimes the answer is surprisingly clear. There is also a shadow to understanding all of this. Once you learn about attachment patterns, avoidance, validation, and emotional activation, it becomes tempting to explain every relationship through psychology. Don't. Sometimes you are afraid. Sometimes you are avoidant. Sometimes you are attached to uncertainty. And sometimes you simply don't like someone enough to build a life with them. Self-awareness isn't finding the most complicated explanation for everything you feel. It is becoming accurate enough to know the difference. The goal was never to become someone who never loses interest. It was to become someone who understands what their interest is responding to. Because once you understand that, you stop letting intensity make every decision for you. You stop assuming butterflies always mean compatibility. You stop assuming calm means boredom. You stop assuming being chosen means you must choose the person back. And you stop confusing the pain of losing attention with the pain of losing love. Maybe the next person who loves you consistently will still frighten you. Maybe part of you will search for the old tension. Maybe you'll wonder where the spark went. But this time, you can pause before deciding what that quietness means. You can ask whether something genuine has disappeared or whether something unhealthy has finally stopped happening. Because sometimes the person didn't suddenly become less attractive when they loved you. Sometimes the chase ended. The uncertainty ended. The need to prove yourself ended. And what remains afterward is the first real opportunity to discover whether you actually want the person standing in front of you. Not the fantasy, not the validation, not the chase. Them. If any part of this resonated with you, think about the last person you desperately wanted who somehow became less interesting once they wanted you back. What changed? Was it them? Or was it the disappearance of the distance between you? Leave a comment and let me know which part landed closest to home. Chances are, you're not the only person who has mistaken uncertainty for attraction without realizing it. Thanks for listening to episodes of Kynn. Take care of your mind, and I'll see you in the next episode.